We are going to be doing some writing samples with all of the available pen technology that I have. I'm going to go roughly in order from oldest technology to newest. So I'm starting with Wacom EMR. And I have two devices that I'm going to do Wacom EMR. This is a Samsung Z Fold 5, which uses Wacom EMR, but it has this unique tip on the prescribed pens that allow it to go in a little bit more. So I'm using my Pen Pro, which allows me to switch back and forth, and I've got it in the Z Fold setting right now. And I'm going to use the same application for all of these tests except for one. I'm using GoodNotes, and I'm going to attempt to write the same or very similar things on all of these different technologies and screen so you can see and hear what the experience is like. So I've got a blank page here. I've got this tablet stand, and actually I need to change this angle a bit. So I got a nice clean page here. I'm going to write letters. And numbers. Then I'm going to write a sentence. And so if you can see that, it's reasonably neat. We've got the letters and the numbers and the sentence. And the sound of the writing on this screen, because it is a soft plastic screen, it is not very paper-like, but the S Pen tips are very soft, so you get a reasonable writing experience. So I'm going to label this so we know what it is. I put what that is so you can see. I do have another EMR tablet. Lest it be said that I have something against e-ink. I do not. I love e-ink. I have a Onyx Books Tab Ultra C here, so it's got a color e-ink screen, and you can see I've got GoodNotes installed, but when I try to launch it, it doesn't work. To be somewhat fair, I hadn't even been able to install GoodNotes until today. So it is at least installed, and that is progress. But I can't show you GoodNotes here, so I'm going to have to show you the built-in note-taking app, which I will do. So I got a new blank page. In the Notes app, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm using the same pen, but I don't have to. Let me switch it over so it at least works right. If only I knew the alphabet. And so I've done the same thing. I've written the letters, the numbers, and the sentence, and I've labeled what this is, although you can't use this app anywhere other than an Onyx device, which is one of the reasons why I don't use e-ink for note-taking as often as I would like, because the writing experience is great. The screen is really nice to use, and you can use pretty much any Wacom EMR pen, but because I can't get usefulness out of a lot of the apps that I like that sync across platforms, I just don't use it as often as I probably should for the amount of money I paid for this device. As you can see, The look is very similar. You can see that. They look very similar in terms of their smoothness. My handwriting looks very similar on these two, which you would expect being the same technology, even though one is e-ink. Next, we have N-Trig, which today is known as Microsoft Pen Protocol, because Microsoft bought N-Trig. And I've got the same page. If I can make this bigger. And you can see I've got the same page and the same note book, because you can see my Samsung writing there. So we're just going to continue from here with my handy Surface pen. It's a short, squat little thing, and it's very thin. You can use a variety of MPP pens with MPP. Even the old N-Trig pens will work. I have some of those, and they work fine. I'm going to attempt to do the same thing. I will tell you that this Windows device, it's an AMD machine, and I have found that it does not perform any near as well as my Surface Book Pro or my Surface Book 3 did with the same technology. It looked better on the Surface. Microsoft and Intel, I think, have optimized the drivers. I am going to assume it's an AMD issue with this machine, but it is what I have to show you, so I'm going to show you. I still can't write I. I have to say this is actually doing really well today. You see the lag. But honestly, I'm going to tell you that even though you can clearly see the difference here between the performance of my handwriting with the EMR, especially on the sentence, you can see I'm writing at the same speed, but it just does not look as good here as it does up here. But it is readable, and I'm going to say this looks better than I have seen this look in a really long time. I don't know if some driver got updated, but honestly, this looks really good today. It normally isn't even legible or readable or usable. I don't use this device for note-taking, even though I really bought it to be a pen-enabled 8-inch pseudo-Android Windows machine. I've blogged about this. If you're interested, I'll put links in the description. But yeah, this actually looks pretty decent today. But you can definitely see the difference, right? And this screen protector I have on here is not matte. You can see how much it's reflecting the light and how you can see reflections in it of my screens. So this is the, I think, only device that doesn't have a matte screen protector that I'm going to show you, other than, well, actually the next device, which doesn't have a screen protector on it at all. So let's get to it. Wacom realized that they had a battle on their hands when Microsoft picked up N-Trig, and suddenly OEMs were manufacturing devices with MPP, so they came back out with Wacom AES as an attempt to fix some of the problems with EMR. One of the issues with EMR is you have to have that special screen, but then you also run into corner issues. Sometimes you lose the ability to write well at the corners. And it's really hard to show that because I don't write in the corners and the edges. Usually when you're note-taking, you're writing on lines or you're writing in the middle of the paper. But from an artistic perspective, AES was designed to help with some of that. So this lovely little device here is a Lenovo YogaBook C930. They only made this for, I think, one generation. It is, I don't know, 7 or 8 years old. It is one of those 2-in-1s that has the convertible touch keyboard on it. If you've ever seen this, yeah, I'm one of the few weirdos that bought this thing, and you can see I've got this weird line going in here. It still works. Even after all these years, this thing still works, but it looks terrible now, but it's so thin and so light. I wish they would make it, I wish they would bring it back, because I think with more RAM, this thing would be phenomenal. I'm in the same page, I'm pretty sure, but we don't see the notes that I've taken so far here because it is not synced. So I'm actually gonna have to figure out what line I need to write on. Okay, that's really thick. Okay, that's better. All right, we're gonna try this out. I don't use this device very often because it is so old and it is so slow. With 4 gigs of RAM and a very, very old Intel processor, it's very, very cranky. But let's see what happens. See if I can get this. Oh, that's even worse than usual. It's weird how the AMD machine worked great, and I wasn't expecting it to, and this one normally looks great, and it doesn't today. So you're experiencing some of the weirdness I've been experiencing trying to determine what is the best technology to use for note-taking. So this is gonna be fun. That's so terrible. This normally really does look better. I don't know how to get us to be online. But it's so hard to talk about this because it's so inconsistent. But you can see when it works, like if you look at the A, B, C, D, if you look at the letters, it's, what you can see on the numbers, like especially with the 4, it's just missing strokes. And you saw the lag, how much lag there is with this. I really think it's a product of this device just not having enough RAM and this particular application being resource intensive. And you wouldn't think it would be. On Windows, it runs in a web view. It's a web app. I think it's actually a web app on Android as well. It's a real application on iOS because of course it is. But for whatever reason, it just seems to struggle. I've had it struggle, like I said, on my 1X player as well. But today, for whatever reason, despite the fact that I'm running a ton of applications, including Android apps, which usually suck up a lot of RAM, it looks so much better. You can see them side by side. It clearly looks much better. And then of course Wacom looking, phenomenally better in comparison. All right, I think we've seen enough of Wacom EES. I swear it does normally look really good. It normally looks almost as good as EMR, but you can see, especially on Windows, the inconsistency of the experience. And it may be this app. You can let me know if you think it's just a product of this application, but I have seen this look so much better in the past. Nevertheless, we're not going to linger here. We're going to keep moving. We're going to move to Apple, because they came out with their own pen design. I've got an iPad Pro here. You can see this one's able to sync. I've got my Samsung Note there and the 1X Player Note showing up here, just as you would expect. The difference though, I don't know if you can see this, but the difference with iOS is because this is a legitimate application and it has additional features on this platform than it has on the others, you can see where it's actually complaining about typos. I think because it thinks my S's are 5s. I'm assuming. The quick brown fox jumps. It should be plural, right? Did I type it wrong or write it wrong? I think that's right. I think it thinks the S's are 5s. So I gotta get my pencil out here. Because this is an M1 iPad Pro, it does not have the hover feature. And you've noticed, you may have noticed on some of these other platforms, and sometimes it's hard to show up on camera, but you get a, oh, I'm using the wrong one. Hang on. It hates it when you use the ones that are designed for regular because of the screen being so soft. But you get a hovering dot. I think you can kind of see that hovering dot there. As I get close to the screen, you get hover. And you get the dot with MPP as well. It's really hard to show it. Get the right angle and get close enough. Now you see it. And you get that with AES as well. You can see the little dot. It's darker here. But you don't get that with the previous gen of the Apple Pencil. I think starting with the M2, when they introduced the M2 iPad Pro, we got hover, but I don't have a newer iPad, so this is what I'm showing you. And I'm going to skip down a little bit. I'm going to start down here. I doubt it comes across on camera, but this is the noisiest pencil of all of them, despite like the Windows machines having, you know, hard glass screens. Obviously the e-ink tablet and my Z Fold don't have hard glass screens, but this one, it's so loud. It's one of my biggest irritations about the Apple Pencil. But I will say Apple did their homework when they came out with the pencil, because it really does work very well. I'm trying to write the S right so it doesn't yell at me again. Try to leave room for where I think the missing tablet should eventually show up. It may never show up, it may never sync, who knows. But you can see, hopefully, that the writing here looks really good. It's not, I'm gonna say it's not as good as Wacom EMR. If you look at my sentence here, the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog, and you look at my sentence here, it's not quite as neat. I don't know if I can get them to both show up together and get them in focus. But it's pretty good. I find that using the Apple Pencil is a very good backup option. I don't have an EMR device handy. If I have the iPad with me, then I'm able to take notes on this and I don't have any qualms about using it because it really does work pretty well. And this application, like I said, is the most full-featured on any platform. Even though my subscription comes from the Android side, I'm able to take advantage of extra features on iOS that I'm not able to use on Windows or Android. So it is good to have cross-platform support here. And then last, not necessarily least, we have two different experiences with USI. I first bought the Chromebook Duet, which doesn't want to power on for me. Okay, here we go. And the Chromebook Duet, I really like Chrome OS. When I got this device and I bought it just to test out USI, because the last Chromebook I had was the Pixel Slate, which used Wacom AES. And so I really wanted to get back to Chrome OS, and I really wanted to test out USI, so this seemed like a great idea. It really hasn't been a great idea. But you can see, by the grace of God, it's actually syncing and working today. So you can see, I got the Samsung in there, I got the 1X player in there, I got the Apple. Still have this mystery space where the poor Lenovo Yoga Book is still sitting here thinking it's offline. And it has an internet connection. I'm looking at it and it's fine. So we've got to start a new page here. And so my experience with USI on this Chromebook has been as flaky as you saw the Wacom AES experience on the Lenovo Yoga Book. Normally the Lenovo Yoga Book is a solid AES note-taking device with no issues that looks almost as good as EMR, as I told you, but my experience with this Chromebook has not been the same level of delight. So we're gonna see how it responds today. I have the pen that's designed for it from Lenovo. This is their precision pen. It's a USI pen. It fits in their little holder that they provide for the Chromebook Duet 3. And again, this is the Duet 3. It is not the latest Chromebook Duet 11. And this one only has 4 gigs of RAM. And I really should stick to my guns, which has always been never buy a machine with less than 8 gigs of RAM, but it was on sale. It was an open box opportunity. So let's go. You'll notice I'm writing a little bit slower because I know this one doesn't keep up, and because I don't have hover with USI, I don't know if you can see that, I'll hold it up quick to the screen in a minute. I'm not as confident with where the pen is going to write. That's so terrible. This isn't the worst, believe it or not, that I've seen coming out of this Chromebook. But you can see that it misses strokes. It looks better than the AES did today, which I'm still embarrassed for this Yoga Book. I don't know what's wrong with it, but for this Chromebook with USI, I would consider this to not be usable, because if I struggle to read my own handwriting, and my own handwriting is not really that bad, I don't have the best handwriting, but those are perfectly legible. Even the 1X player is reasonably legible compared to what we've got here. That's just, it's so annoying. But with USI, try to bring this in here, you don't get any kind of hover. although you do get the ability to kind of hover over items on the screen and have them sometimes tell you what's going on. Oh, well, nothing is working today as I would expect it. Normally when you kind of hover over the other items, they change color and bounce around. That's not happening today. I really do think RAM is a factor both with this Lenovo and the other Lenovo. They just need more than 4 gigs of RAM to really function the way you would expect. That was my experience with the Chromebook. I didn't give up though. I'm somewhat tenacious when it comes to making sure that I've experienced something the way it's meant to be experienced. So I also went out and got a Pixel tablet. Let's see if this loads up as well as it did on the Chromebook. Not looking good so far. Nothing ever goes the way you expect when you're on camera, does it? Ah, there we go. All right. So you can see from the previous page, Samsung's still here. My next player, open space for the poor Yoga book. The Apple Pencil's here. And we got the Chromebook page here. I have so many pens now, I don't even know which one this one is. Let's use the one that's attached to it. This is the Pen Oval pen. And this case that I have for this Pixel tablet has a pen holder, which is probably the only way I'd ever keep up with this. All right. Once again, I'm going to label, what is this? The Pixel tablet. Pixel tablet. Okay, so as you can see, these are both USI, but there's a dramatic difference in performance here. The letters are so much more legible and neat. The numbers are all decipherable. Even the labeling on the name of it is clearly much better here than it is here. And the sentence is much more readable. So that's been my experience, is that the Pixel tablet with this extra RAM, even with the same pen, lest you think there's a difference in pen, this was the Lenovo pen I used with the Chromebook. It's still better, right? They're very similar. Very similar. So it's not the pen. When I first used the Chromebook Duet, I had a cheap generic USI pen from Amazon, and it was actually a terrible pen. But once I got the Lenovo and Pen Oval pens, I realized it's not really the pen though, it's the tablet. There's a difference between taking notes on the Chromebook Duet and the Pixel tablet. So that's been my experience with these pen technologies. I find all of them usable for the most part. EMR is my favorite because it looks the best to me. But today, even the MPP pen, which I normally just can't stand on the 1X player, I would consider that to be usable over USI on the Chromebook Duet. Clearly, over AES on the Yoga book, although normally, like I'm telling you, it normally looks good. In fact, I can show you an example. I have a note. I think I have a note that I took with this same tablet and this same pen. and it looked great. Let's see if I can pull that up. Nah, I'm still offline. It probably won't let me pull it up. Oh, but I can show you on a different device. Here we go. So, I don't know how well you can see this, but this is a completely different note. And I've got my Z Fold 5 here with the S Pen Pro like I showed you before. And here's the Wacom AES, and you see how good that looks. If you look at these two together, they're very comparable, yes? No misstrokes. It's very good. My experience with AES on the Yogabook when it's working, it's great. It's really good. It's so much better than MPP. But for whatever reason, today, it is not performing. So I can't show you that live, but you've seen how they all operate. You've seen that for the most part, they're all usable to some different levels of degrees. Again, I think for today, ignoring the poor little Yogabook, I think USI can perform the worst, or it can perform adequately well compared even to MPP on a Windows machine. I would consider USI a little bit better, but not so much night and day here that I would have a trouble trying to figure out which one to use on, and I would use whichever one I had, right? But that's been my experience. EMR best, USI worst, everything else kind of similar in the middle. It really comes down to what's important to you in terms of pen. Does it bother you to have a proprietary pen where you're stuck with the tips they want you to have? And I know there's different things people have created to put over the tips to make them feel better and be less tappy, because that's still irksome to me. But if you go with, you know, USI, you've got different pens, not as many. If you go with MPP, there are a number of different pens out there from well-known brands that support the MPP brand, not just Microsoft. I have probably 3 or 4 different MPP pens on my own. I've probably got 10 different Wacom pens. This is actually one of my favorites. I can't hold on to anything. The Statler Norris. I love this pen. Eraser. It's great. But that's where I am with my pen experience. Everything is usable most of the time, but EMR is usable all of the time. Apple Pencil is usable all the time. They're very consistent. USI on the Pixel tablet is usable all of the time. AES, sketchy. USI on something else, with less RAM, sketchy. So you've seen how they perform, and hopefully it helps you understand what might be useful to you for your note-taking. At least if you're trying to have something that's interoperable across platforms, you want to use, you know, an application like this or an application like Nebo or OneNote, you want it to be able to perform across platforms. You've seen how different platforms operate in just this one application. Hopefully it gives you an idea of what to expect for your own note-taking. Thanks.